am your host, Sarah Sworniak. I'm helping prepare you for your next journey and empower you to take it on. Whether you're searching for a job or facing a roadblock which led you to a detour in life, we're sharing stories that will help you put your best foot forward. Hi there, Sarah Sworniak here with Best Foot Forward. This week we are talking about taking control and entering the freelance world. And I'm talking to Lindsay Hyatt, owner of Lindsay Hyatt Co. Lindsay is a copywriter, marketing strategist with more than 15 years of experience in the fields ranging from healthcare to automotive. And after attempting to ignore the pull of entrepreneurship for most of her working life, she made the leap to business owner in 2021 and hasn't looked back. She has since become a certified coach for women ready to take control and lead a more fulfilling life. This is a great episode, especially to hear Lindsay's story. And I think it's a good opportunity for those out there still in the hunt for a job and maybe thinking about starting their own business to maybe dip the toes into freelance work first to see if it's something that you're interested in, something that works for you in your schedule, your family life, etc. We give you a lot of great tips to do that. If you're wondering, how do I do this? How do I get into freelance? So we hope you enjoy it. I'd like to welcome Lindsay Hyatt to the show. She is a content creator just like me. And, we both come from the mindset of copywriters, content creators, marketing strategists. So I appreciate you being here, Lindsay.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Anytime. I figured you'd be a perfect person because you're on it. You're doing stuff on your own. You are your own boss. So I think it's really, really awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do offer. I know you've also, along with doing content creation, you're doing coaching as well on the side too for folks who may need a little bit of inspiration, get, kind of figure themselves out. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I am a copywriter and I've been a copywriter for a long time. It's more than 15 years, we'll just say that. But throughout my career in marketing in the corporate world, I've done a little bit of everything from like event planning to the copy to brand strategy, like in all different industries. So I consider myself very lucky that I had all those different experiences to really get a feel for what I love to do and see it unfold in so many different areas of business. So that was really cool. But I knew the whole time, elder millennial here, I just felt like something was missing. And even some of the really great jobs I had where I thought I could stay here forever, it never really quite got to the place where I felt like, yes, I'm doing what I love. I'm just like so fulfilled. I also had some experiences that were not great that really made me question everything about working in a team setting with an organization and especially being a woman. And I have a whole lot of thoughts on that. But so it was always a dream to have my own business. And I just didn't really think it would be a reality. Fast forward to the pandemic. I was about to have my second daughter. Thankfully, she came 2 weeks before the world shut down. So we went from having a newborn right into that pandemic. And with it came my husband lost his job. I was, of course, on maternity leave, which was, of course, at the time, it was a blessing. We were all home together. But it got a little scary there on the financial end. And that is when I started to freelance on the side of my 9-to-5 at the time. So that's really what got me into this mode of not only writing again, which I had missed so much, and I didn't know until I was doing the freelance how much I missed it. But seeing what else could be possible. And so in 2021, I launched my own business, Lindsay Hyatt Co., which I specialize in copywriting for all kinds of industries, but I love doing work in the wellness industry, in the parenting industry. And then since then, I have actually also included some coaching as part of my repertoire, and I got certified this fall to be a coach. So that's pretty new, but it's really exciting. And underneath all of that, I'm a mom of 2 little girls, and a fierce Buffalonian. So
What a great time to be a Buffalonian too, on top of
I
that.
know, what a time to be alive in Buffalo. It's great.
No, no, it's awesome too, especially I have two little girls as well, a 15-month-old and 5-year-old. So I think
Oh yeah.
both having two young kids, and I freelance on the side as well. Content creator with an 8 to 5 job or 8 to 4 job, and freelance on the side too. So I really want, this is an opportunity for anybody out there that's listening that maybe has felt like how Lindsay's felt, or wanting to maybe have a little extra side income on the side, especially you know whether it's for birthdays, anything, going on a trip, what have you. Freelance is definitely a great opportunity, and we can kind of give folks some ideas as well.
Yeah.
So in kind of like streaming into that, I mean, many people are searching for the perfect job when things might really be in their control. For instance, with you kind of going out on your own. So when did you know, was there like a specific moment, or was it like that time period during the pandemic where you knew you kind of wanted to jump into working for yourself as a creative?
Yeah, it was actually before the pandemic. I was chatting with my husband one night and I said, after we have this baby, I really I did not want to go back to corporate life. I said, I really want to work for myself. And at that time, I didn't have a path. I couldn't see how, because of course you're thinking like, I have a family to support here. Like I can't just my good old days where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna quit and I'll figure it out. Like you can't do that anymore. So at the time, it was kind of a wish. Like this is what I wish. I don't know, maybe during maternity leave, I'll get another job. It was very open-ended. And I actually started listening to podcasts a lot during that time. And one of my favorite podcasts that I found was called the Copywriter Club podcast. And listening to stories of people from all walks of life that had become copywriters, some that hadn't even done it before, some that also transitioned from a corporate setting, and how they have built these businesses that are giving them, really fulfilling lives where they can work around their family and also are making crazy amounts of money. It was like mind-blowing to me, because I think so many people have this idea that when you're a creative, a designer, a writer, an artist, you're a starving artist. And so that's always kind of what I imagine, like, well, maybe when I'm like super established, maybe when I'm making like a certain amount of money, maybe around 45 or 50, I'll be able to do this. But hearing that it was possible for other people that were just as normal as I was, like, it really inspired me to think like, hey, could this really happen? So that's when the thought was really churning for me. And then when I took on these freelance clients on the side of my 9 to 5, really to support my family, while my husband's job situation was in the air, it made me think like I could match my salary almost immediately, my monthly salary that I was bringing home. So I'm like, what if I had the time really to pursue this? Because I was working nights and weekends, and I was fine with that. I was like happy to be writing. But that's when it really clicked, like, oh my God, this could really work.
Yeah, and I mean, this story is not our industry, but my grandfather owned his own construction company, and for him, the catalyst, it was a Friday night at night, and he's doing the books for bookkeeping. He was doing HR, doing payroll stuff, um, everything that you do to run a business. He was doing it for his boss, and his mindset was, if I'm going to do all this work, I might as well own the business. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then he ended up just quitting, and that Monday, started his own construction company.
Wow.
But
That's awesome.
which is like a huge risk, because you had a,
Uh-huh.
you have a family.
Yeah.
So there's that safety net with, working for somebody. So it's definitely, if anyone out there is afraid to do that, you can always dip your toes. We always hear Gary Vaynerchuk always talking about that, right? Where it's like you have your daytime routine of your day job, but what are you doing
Mhm.
In your evenings, what are you doing on your weekends? And of course, you got to have that work-life balance. You got to put family first. But, if there's a will, there's a way, I think is the lesson.
I totally agree, and I think that especially if it's something you're passionate about and you love, it's so cliche, but it doesn't feel like a job when you're, like, so excited to do something, and that's how I felt for a while, but
Right.
you said you gotta have that balance. There was some after a while, it was like, "I'm tired. I gotta decide what we're doing here," but I love that you can really get an idea of what it would be like to do it full time just by having one client or one project on the side.
Right. And I think the best way to do that, if anyone's like, how do I find one of those? If you're leaving a job, never burn a bridge, number one.
Oh, no.
You
Right.
know what I mean? Because one of my first freelance clients was a former employee. They were not filling my position. So, and I loved what I did there. I loved
Mhm.
what I built there from a marketing standpoint. So I reached out and asked like, hey, I can do this for you, not like full time, but if you need,
Yeah,
immediate items, I can create for you for, giving the rate, the freelance rate. And they said yes. And I think that's the first thing people need to realize. Like if you know anyone, if you have a
mhm.
former employer and you get wind things aren't going so great, the worst thing anybody can say to you is no.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's from where I started, it was all referral. It
Mhm.
was all networking and even referrals from other writers that knew I was, putting myself out there.
Mhm.
Um, but anything can turn into to work or even just a great networking relationship or a mentorship or something. So I totally agree with that.
So what was the process like to kind of take these thoughts, kind of your intuition with what you wanted to do and making that into a reality?
Yeah, for me, the process, and I'm thinking about it now, I'm laughing because when I get like an intuitive insight into something, I have a hard time ignoring it. So once I kind of started to think like, hey, I could do this. I could totally do this. Of course brought it up to my husband and he is so wonderful and supportive, but we don't come from like a family of entrepreneurs, like, very traditional. You go to college, you go get a job, try to stay there for 20 years, the whole thing
Right.
that we're taught, like that's normal. So he was, of course, a little bit nervous because it was quite a risk to take at such a uncertain time in the world as well. So we started to have conversations around it, and he agreed that it could be a good time to explore it. We worked on kind of like a 4-month plan, like an exit strategy, if you will, and it ended up being much less than that because I just couldn't wait. I have to start this. Like I feel this momentum. Before I left officially my position, I actually did start reaching out to trusted people in my network, even former employers that I've kept friendships with throughout the years. Where we live, it's a small town, small town, kind of everyone knows everyone. So but the benefit of that is so many kind and supportive people, even just sending my information on to someone they knew that maybe could use my services. And just, hey, just letting you know, in the summer, I'm going to be doing this full time. Like, I'd love if I can support you. And so I started to kind of take these little baby steps into getting ready during this time period before I gave my notice. And, at the time, I think I had two freelance clients that were, giving me like a pretty steady income every month of work that I could count on. So once I know that that was pretty solid and I had the process down for all of that, then I felt much more comfortable with making the leap. And it was for sure scary. But as soon as I did it, as soon as I, put the word out and it was official, I felt such relief and so excited. I just like never really looked back. So I do think it was good to have that work lined up and know that I could count on it, but also just be like constantly planting seeds and putting myself out there.
So you say you felt good, but how did it feel when you gave your notice?
Um, I felt so bad. Well, truly, I mean, I worked with lovely, lovely people at the job that I was at. And I didn't, of course, you never like want to let the team down or anything like that, but they were all very supportive too and kind in my departure. So, like you said, it's great if you can maintain those relationships. But as soon as I did it, I mean, I probably drove up to the building and had like, my Beyonce mix on, like, yeah, you could do it. Like pump yourself up. But I felt relief. I felt relief. I felt like this is what I am supposed to be doing. And this is the lifetime, like an opportunity of a lifetime. I just couldn't
Oh
believe
yeah,
I'm doing it. So felt good.
that's awesome. How long did it take for you to start seeing more traction into your business?
So it's funny because I was so lucky that right out the gate, I had leads, I had the business I already was working on, and lots of connections in terms of like meeting with people, having Zoom chat, even just like coffee chats with people. And so right out the gate, I had work coming in, all referral. Um, and I almost think it set me up in a way for the downfall that was to come, because in entrepreneurship, it is a roller coaster. And I almost don't think it matters what level you're at. There's going to be seasons that are crazy and there's going to be seasons that are quiet. And you know that, but like living it it's a different thing. So I was like rocking and rolling out the gate in the summer. Things were great. And then suddenly in November, it got quiet, which of course, all the holidays, seasons
Very
ending.
true.
But that was like kind of a slap in the face, because I was like, oh my God, I'm failing. What am I doing? And it was quiet for, I don't know, yeah, probably like a month or two. And that really kind of made me pause and think like, I never doubted that I wanted to be doing it this way, or even, what I was doing as a copywriter, but I thought like, who am I? Like, what's my niche? What's my identity? I had to take a minute and like step back. But I've learned from then that like to really try to plan and expect those slow times, because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. So it was great to come out and launch my business and have such success right up front. But I think in a way it almost did me a disservice, where I thought like, this is easy. Like, and then when it wasn't, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do?
I know
But
you're holding your breath for a bit there.
yeah, it was, and even as recent as this past summer, it was a very dry summer in terms of client work. And I had some days where I was like, oh my God, like this is a little nerve-wracking. So you just kind of have to plan for that, you know, logistically and mentally, and on the mindset part too.
And I think anyone who is interested in freelance stuff, speaking from my perspective, you're hearing Lindsay and I talk about how we had connections that we utilize to build clientele off of, but other avenues that you can take if you're saying to yourself, well, I don't have that repertoire or those connections, like where can I go? There are really great resources. I've used Clear Voice, which is a great content marketing platform where businesses go basically in search of content, people to create content for them. And I've worked with some really, really big national and world known brands. So like I recommend, if anyone's looking into freelancing, to do clearvoice.com. But be patient, because it takes a while to hear. I think it took me a full year before I started getting like big names coming to me for content. And anytime you write something on the internet, like upload it, they have like an area where you can upload your own CV. That way brands can kind of like a library look through your stuff to see if your writing style is a fit for them. And then I know Fiverr too, that's another big one that people utilize if you're wanting to dabble in the freelance world.
I've had friends that have really made quite an impact for their businesses going through Upwork. So similar. Yeah. And I think if you really are dedicated to spending the time there, and I don't know a lot about it, but you can really find some great client work there.
Yeah, there's definitely where there's a will, there's a way. You know, and you just kind of got to keep plugging away at it, especially like those companies like Upwork, Fiverr, Clear Voice. I mean, you have a huge pool of creatives. It's not just writers, it's mostly writers, but you know, graphic design artists, you know, anyone who's got a creative bug. You know, it's just this mass influx. So when the jobs are there, they're, you know, they're there. But you know, you shouldn't expect to like log on, make an account and have immediate work. It's gonna take a while for anyone that's interested or curious on that. So you've also gone into, we talked a little bit about earlier, gone into coaching. So can you tell us a little bit about how, you know, you started a career with like your freelance work, as a creative, like how did you kind of merge into this realm?
Yeah, copywriting, writing in general has always been just my first love since I was a small child. So, you know, that was something I knew I wanted to do right away. But very, very soon after I launched my business, I got the bug for how else can I be of service to people. And once I kind of got onto this other side of things in the freelance world and the small business world, all I could think about was how can I tell more women about this? And because I know that there are so many women out there that were in similar scenarios as me, you know, with a young family and thinking like, how am I going to be in all the places I need to be and support all the people that I need to support in this kind of traditional corporate lifestyle, I guess. And so I knew right away that I wanted to be available to people who were interested in kind of seeing things a different way or living a different non-traditional lifestyle. I didn't know what that meant. It probably took me almost a full year and a half to really figure out what that would look like. And I should also say on the side of this that the coaching industry, especially in the online space, is unregulated. And so as soon as I really started my business account and was doing content for myself as a business owner, I was seeing like everyone and their brother's a coach. And I'm just like, yeah, I like roll my eyes. Okay, sure you are, buddy. Like that was kind of my take on coaching in general when I first started. But I found over time the value in having that coach or mentorship person in your life, and for myself included, and just how helpful it can be as you're on your journey, whether it's a personal one or a professional one. So I just felt like I want to be that. If I can be that person, even for one woman who is interested in thinking outside the box, how can I do that? So I wrapped my head around the word coach, and it was hard for me, but I did it. And I went through the certification program this fall, and it was from kind of like a whole human approach. I was so lucky to train with one of like 1,500 what they call master coaches through the International Coaching Federation in the world. So she was just so knowledgeable. But I really want to have that foundation there for my own practice if I was able to, you know, expand into that. So that's what I'm doing now. And my goal is to be able to support anyone who's interested in just living a more fulfilling life, because that's really what I was looking for. And yeah, I'm honored if I can be a part of anyone's journey like that.
Well, that's awesome. What are your hopes like as you interact with your participants, like, with your coaching?
Yeah, I think that and this was a misconception I had as well before I got more educated on being a coach and what that looks like, is I kind of assumed that when you have a coach, they're there to like lead you, give you advice, you know, to kind of tell you what to do if you're stuck in a place. But what I found is it's really more like shining a light on what's already within you or pulling out something that maybe you can't see for yourself. So that's one of the things that I would hope in my practice going forward, that I can help other people learn to trust themselves and find their own intuition. And that is kind of, it's so cool because when you work with people closely, especially in a one-on-one relationship, and you can kind of see the moments where they are able to connect to their own expertise, their own intuition, their own knowledge, and think like, it's very empowering that they can pull from that place whenever they need to. So my ultimate goal and my hope would be that I can help others connect to that place within them.
That's great. So does your coaching ever intertwine with the copywriting?
It has, and it's actually like a very natural fit. As copywriters, we, as a content creator too, is you're really connecting very closely to somebody or an organization's mission.
Mhm.
And the words that they use are so powerful, to get their message across to their audience. So it's almost, I've had clients that ended up working with me for their own brands with copy because we have a relationship already where I really know a lot about the inner workings of what they're doing, what they're passionate about. So it's a very natural transition to also work with them in that capacity.
Well, I think too with creatives, especially writers, content creators, I think are not to give us a little ego boost, but it's the truth. We have a high emotional intelligence because we need to have empathy. We need to, when we're digging in with working with brands or clients, what have you, we really got to dig into like the purpose behind things. And I think kind of, as you're saying, the higher purpose in life too kind of goes hand in hand with trying to create something from a creative standpoint that speaks volumes to people or connects to people. I mean, that's my whole, especially as a content creator, I'm all about like creating connections, creating information, anything that can connect people to a product or a service. So I think that that's definitely a good way to marry it.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give based off of everything that you've been through with charging your own path here? What advice would you give to those who are thinking about making the jump into freelance, but might be a little apprehensive?
Yeah. It can be really scary. The unknown is scary, but I say do it. Just do it. Because one thing I actually had to tell myself, because even though I knew I wanted to do it, I was excited about it, I believed in what I was doing, is I had to make it okay that if it didn't work out, it was going to be fine. So something I kind of taught myself is nothing is permanent. If in a year this isn't working and it's stressing me out, or things aren't going well financially or whatever, I can get another job. Telling yourself that like this is it, it's the end all be all, like if I don't do this, I'm a failure. Like you have to kind of get your mindset right to, this is an experiment. This is all that this is an experiment. So nothing is permanent, but I also say get as comfortable as you can with the process. So whether that's just dipping the baby toe in to just do like a little bit of on the side, a fun project on the side of what you're already doing to get that feel. Does it light you up? Do you feel like, oh, I could spend all day doing this? Like that's a sign that maybe there's something there to explore. And get support. I had a mentor that I actually reached out to before I left my job that I've known for many years. And he's been doing this for a long time. And he was so kind to meet with me and just kind of talk through like his experience and let me pick his brain about things. And there was a question he asked me in our chat that like resonated with me so much. And he's just like, after everything, he was like, so what's stopping you? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it gave me a minute to pause and reflect on like, what is stopping me? And the answer for me was purely financial, like just the financial. That was the only thing that was stopping me because everything else felt good. And he's like, what if that wasn't like, what if it ends up better than you could imagine? And I'm like, well, I never considered that. It's just having somebody else to give you a perspective that maybe you don't have is so helpful, especially if they are doing what you want to be doing. And then A community. At the time, we were still like pretty heavy in the pandemic, so I wasn't really getting out. But anywhere you can just have a network of people, whether it's in person, I have come across I've become part of so many online communities where some of these people have become like some of my closest friends in the last couple years. Or if you're joining like some kind of program. For me, I actually ended up going back to the Copywriter Club, and their accelerator program was the very first thing I did, actually in the fall of the first year of my business. And through them, not only did I get some great foundational skills for building my business, but the people that I met there, they're like my people. They're my people now. So having that support is so important.
That's super important too. And having a good support system, whether it's, family,
Yes.
friends, significant other, fellow creatives, Western New York, we're a small, tight-knit group,
Yeah.
or we, in some capacity, I think we know of each other if we don't know each other, you know what I mean?
Great.
So, it's I would say too, totally agree with you, like dipping the toes a little bit at a time, but also like don't like overdo it too. Like don't take on
Yeah.
more than you can, especially if you've got a full-time job and a family.
Yes.
You gotta have downtime for you too.
Yeah, and as a mom, like how
Yeah.
quickly things can shift and you're all of a sudden you have two sick kids on you and you're just like, just keep
Imagine that.
swimming.
Imagine that. Especially when, as you know, it rotates the house over and
Yes.
over
Yeah.
again.
Over and over.
On top of that. So tell us a little bit about the reprogramming. I know it's a 7-week series. How often are you planning on doing that, just in case folks can't get in for January?
Yeah, I plan to launch it again in the summertime. So this is kind of our kickstart to the new year. And it is a 7-week program, and I love to have this community of people who are looking to do something for themselves. And where it really came from was I was a mom, 2 little kids, the pandemic life, never getting a break, never leaving home, plus all the uncertainty and the fear and all of the stuff. And I was in survival mode for like 2.5 years. And I woke up one day and I was like, I don't want to live like this. Like I have to find a way to put myself first, which is so difficult for women and mothers. It's unnatural, it feels unnatural sometimes. But I kind of developed this for myself, different ways to examine kind of the different parts of your life that are important: self-care, self-love, relationships in your life, body and movement. These are the things that I was paying very little attention to during this time because I was so worried about everybody else. But as you know, if you're pouring from that empty cup, like nobody benefits. So I created this program, and then I thought, I just want to share this with people. So we are starting again January 16th, and enrollment is open now. You can learn more about it at my website, lindsayhyatt.com. And yeah, I'm excited to welcome people into it.
Well, I'm excited for you. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if people can't make it in for whatever reason for January, as Lindsay said, the summer is a great opportunity too. New season, summer too. I mean, new season,
Yeah.
right? And new year, new you.
You know what? There's something so magical that I discovered this year, and I'm like not a nature person, of being outside
Yeah.
and really connecting to, like, oh man, do I sound woo, the earth.
I hear you. Yeah.
But it's
And
harder
calling
to do
dinosaurs
that.
again.
In these Buffalo winters, it's a little harder to do that.
Oh, it's very, very difficult, especially with the bitter cold. I mean, when you can make it out, it's definitely, beautiful, but yeah,
Sure.
how cold it is. But
Yes.
Lindsay, I thank you so much for doing the show, for giving people maybe the nudge that they need to kind of consider if they're interested in stepping in the freelance world or working for
Yeah.
themselves.
Thank you, Sarah. And if anyone ever wants to connect or needs someone to listen, I'm here. I love that stuff. So I appreciate you having me.
Anytime.